Hello there, and welcome to the Next Generation Carriers podcast, the Women's Roundtable edition. I am your host, Margo, and I am incredibly honored to be hosting my very first episode of Next Generation Carriers, and today I would like to talk about burnout. So I don't know if you have kind of peeked your head out around the corner of your case in the morning, but I think a lot of the people at the post office are burnt out. And especially the women, but I think the gentlemen, I think the girlies, the boilies, the everybody's will have a lot to get out of this episode. So let's be real. We work a very demanding job, sometimes for long hours of the day. It is incredibly taxing on our bodies and on our minds. So I thought that this would be an appropriate topic because it is going to become even more relevant as we head into peak season. And we all get to deal with a massive influx of election mail, parcels, cards, advertisements, and all sorts of stuff. And I especially see burnout affecting my friends who are union activists, stewards, or hold another position within the union, like particularly in the mental and caring aspect of burnout. But we will get into that a little bit later. So when I Google a technical definition of burnout, what comes up is the following. Burnout is an occupational phenomenon characterized by extreme exhaustion from chronic workplace stress, leading to feelings of cynicism or negativism towards one's job and a reduced sense of personal efficacy. So, for me to put that into English, it means that you have been working so hard for so long that you begin to feel a strong sense of resentment and frustration with your job. It has primarily been studied in the context of healthcare workers and other care workers, but I would say that it also applies to jobs like ours where the work is very physical and we work for long hours of the day. So basically, you start to feel completely exhausted. You begin to question everything, but like in a bad way. You begin to ask yourself, like, what is it all worth? Does any of this even matter? Like, your mood is no longer lifted when you get to say hello to one of your favorite customers. You no longer feel joy upon seeing, and being able to pet one of your favorite dogs on the route. And I know a lot of people may not want to admit this, but maybe you have been fighting for your coworkers for so long within the union that you just begin to think that it's all futile and that nothing will ever change. So why bother? Your only thought in this stage of burnout is how to get home as soon as possible so that you can get some much needed sleep. So, now, I know that some of you out there are going to laugh when you hear me say these things like, but Margo, of course I just want to clock out and go home. This is a job. I never thought that I ever mattered here in the first place. Never got my hopes up. Don't worry about me. Of course I know that I'm just a number. I'm just a cog in the machine. But I want to insist that if you are listening to a podcast about being a next generation carrier, maybe you're a little bit more bought in than you're ready to admit. Maybe you care a little bit more than you think. So, and the thing is that I know that most of my coworkers feel the way that I just described. And to a certain extent, I think the things that we will be talking about today could be considered normal if it's not to an extreme degree. But if you're going through any of this on even like a mild level, like, maybe it's not a terrible idea if you just want to keep your eye on things and make sure that symptoms don't worsen over time or even spiral out of control. I want you to hold it in your head for a moment that maybe burnout is a lot more common here at the post office than we might think. Maybe it's part of the culture here, even if we joke about it. And the whole mission of Next Generation Carriers is to change the culture, and I think that this is a discussion worth having. So, burnout is defined by three primary dimensions. First one, energy depletion and exhaustion. Second one, increased mental distance from one's job. Third one, a reduced sense of accomplishment. So, first one, exhaustion. This is the most common symptom, including both physical and emotional tiredness that goes beyond your typical daily fatigue. So it's like you leave work, your feet hurt, You don't have the physical or mental energy to think of what to make for dinner or to actually make yourself dinner, so you swing through the drive-thru once again on your way home. No shade towards the drive-thru. We all love it every once in a while, but, you know, you get home and you don't even want to engage in your hobbies, in your life, or with your family anymore, and all you have is the energy to scroll on your phone or watch your show. And, again, no shade towards shows. I've got a couple, too, that I watch, but we're talking energy levels here, so. Like, you don't even have the energy to, like, pick up your socks off the floor, clean out your lunchbox, or do the dishes. None of that stuff. Like, just done. So, second sort of dimension is cynicism and negativism. So this is when you experience a growing sense of detachment, negativism, or cynicism related to one's job and responsibilities. So this is when you begin to feel like the job itself is worthless and that you're not doing anything important or worthwhile. This is where, like, what's the point starts to settle in. Like, all I deliver anyways is junk mail, right? Or, like, you know, it's just grievance after grievance and it never ends, and you know, what am I doing this for? And then the third dimension is a reduced efficacy. So this is like the feeling of ineffectiveness and like a lack of accomplishment in your professional life. So this is the point where it begins to turn inward. You begin to feel like you're the problem, and you're beginning to feel this way because you are doing something wrong or that it's your fault. And listen, I'm not a doctor. I am just a regular city carrier just like everyone else here, and I can't give medical advice. But burnout is technically not even classified as a medical condition, but as an occupational phenomenon that can result in significant physical and mental health issues if not managed. It can worsen other pre-existing conditions like depression and anxiety. And we'll talk about a couple ways to manage and prevent burnout here soon, but I just kind of want to describe the list of symptoms that you might be experiencing that I think are probably pretty common at the post office. So the first one is physical. So like chronic fatigue, insomnia, frequent headaches, muscle pain, gastrointestinal issues. Other symptoms are mental, like feelings of helplessness, being trapped or defeated, and difficulty concentrating. And then there are the behavioral issues like irritability. Is the post office listening to me, guys? Social withdrawal and increased use of alcohol or other substances. I know some of y'all's ears perked up. And additionally, like many of the workplace factors that can lead to it are unmanageable workloads, a lack of control, unclear job expectations, and insufficient support from managers and colleagues. So I think that we've all experienced a little bit of this at work. And additionally, lifestyle factors, including poor work-life balance, lack of sleep, and a few meaningful relationships. So I think that those things can all kind of play into it. I just want to talk about some of the things that we face at the post office, like specifically, that can be causes of stress, to maybe get you thinking about your own experience and how to make things better. And none of these lists, none of this is ever exhaustive, and I want to make it clear that this is also not the time to like compare yourself and your level of stress with anyone else. So you may have a tendency to invalidate yourself. For example, to like point to a coworker and say, well, she has it worse than me, and so I have no right to feel the way that I do. Or you may even go the other way around and say, I can't believe that she thinks that she's dealing with burnout. Like, let's trade lives if she wants to know what real burnout is. And additionally, there are really huge things that could be contributing to your burnout, or there could be like a million tiny things, or any combination of the two. All we know are our own lives and our own levels of stress. And likewise, I just wanted to remind people that everyone that you know is dealing with a battle that you know nothing about. So let's use this as an opportunity to like empathize with and love one another instead of comparing our situations in a way that nobody benefits from. And I also just wanted to throw in there that burnout is generally talked about as something that is like strictly occupational, but I would say that there are a lot of other facets of your life that can contribute to burnout as well, including like responsibilities at home, the family, the people you care for, and even like other social stuff. Like all of it can contribute to just an overwhelming sense of burnout. And aside from like the physical and mental symptoms of burnout being caused by our physically and mentally taxing job, there is the additional context of being active within the union, being a steward or another leader and trying to take care of your people, potentially facing resistance from your branch or from management every step of the way. It can be tiring and exhausting. And additionally, there are plenty of strong personalities in our jobs, our coworkers, management, and particularly within the activism and union space. Maybe you're feeling like you have to sort of manage those people, and that can be a source of stress. And I just wanted to say, like, I know a lot of people feel this responsibility to like manage strong personalities, and it's like, you gotta let that go. Okay, we'll get into more tips about how to make things better a little bit later on, but like, locus of control is huge. You can control some things, you cannot control most things. So to just remember what you can control and what you can't, I think has been something that's very helpful for me. But maybe you're on the receiving end of someone who always has criticism about what you do, which can be frustrating in and of its own right. So additionally, like many of the femme type coworkers won't admit this because as women, we want to put on a good face and we want to carry on without making too much of a fuss. But me, like, I don't really care. I'm going to say it. I don't have any kids. I've got a cat. I don't have a husband. I don't live with any family members. So I'll say it. Women are going home after work and clocking into the second shift, which means that many of us are caring for kids, husbands, aging parents, any number of people, family members. And I guarantee that you have coworkers that go home and a hot plate is served to them when they get there. And I think, girl, if you're doing this because you love to cook and you're doing these things from a place of love in your heart, that is so beautiful. And I'm so happy for you. And at the same time, if it's put on you by default, resentment will likely build over time. And the things that we consider to be the biggest blessings, like our family, can wear us down over time and add to that burnout. Additionally, I want to add that this is probably why we don't see a ton of women in organizing spaces like ours. Not always. I mean, a lot of the times, there are a lot of active like women within the organizing space and everything like that, but it's very much a challenge, very much a hurdle to jump over when you have so many responsibilities at home. Sometimes I will be the only woman in a Zoom meeting, and it's not because these issues don't affect women, because they very, very much do. But it's just the badass women that you work with are putting in the most important work of raising the next generation of humans, which my applause. And personally, my lack of responsibilities at home makes it easier, in my opinion, for me to participate in organizing spaces. And that's why I want to use this platform to raise the voices of the women that I work with. More Roundtable episodes coming soon. And to all the men out there, I'm not saying that you don't pull your weight around the house. I am sure that you do. And I just want to take a minute to recognize that we're all here right now because we're burnt out. And men's mental health, men's burnout matters as well. And also, this is the Women's Roundtable. So in my experience, I love my parents. I grew up with two working parents, and I saw firsthand how much the chores were split up and who took care of what. And I know that not a ton has changed since then. So if you haven't had a conversation with your partner about the equitability of tasks around the house, maybe it is time to sit down and have that conversation. I mean, it's not easy to bring up, but I know that there are resources out there. One that I've heard of is called Fair Play by Eve Rodsky. It's difficult because we've kind of had this revolution of women entering the workforce, but we're in this weird era where things haven't evened out at home. And I think it's something that we should examine, and it's definitely something that women are talking about. So next up, dealing with abusive management. I mean, dealing with abusive management kind of speaks for itself. It's a whole chain of command here. We all know that the fish rots from the head down, and that the higher-ups abuse the people below them, which stresses out the people below them, and the cycle of abuse eventually reaches us, right? Some people go on a power trip and love the idea of having people who they're in charge of it and managing in any way. We've all been on the receiving end and heard stories awful stories of management, whether they're targeting you on the street, spying on you from behind a bush, or saying inappropriate things to you that would make it impossible to get out of bed in the morning. So if this is happening to you, I really recommend bringing it up to your steward, because this absolutely should not be happening, okay? And if your steward doesn't do anything, go to your president. And if your president doesn't do anything, contact your business agent. And as we know, it seems that the worst management, the worst managers never get put out of management positions. They just get moved around, so it seems. And much of the time, like stewards and people have their own experiences of mistreatment by management that were never taken care of, and cause them to maybe not take other people's experiences seriously. But if we ever plan to change the culture the way that we are trying to, we have to start insisting that this is not normal, and that it has no place in our workplace. And remember to document. So when something happens, take a note of it with the date and the time that the harassment occurred, who was around to witness it, and what happened. And this will help the union argue their case. So if you have text messages, emails, voicemails, whatever, even better, screenshot those bad boys, okay? And maybe it's not a manager, maybe it's both, but maybe there's any number of things that can go wrong when you're out on the street. Maybe something terrible happened to you or in front of you on your route. I mean, there are many stories of carriers who have been robbed, witnessed shootings, been attacked by dogs, any number of things that can go wrong that will give you a little bit of pause before you enter an area. Maybe you have a tricky customer who gives you trouble or makes you uncomfortable, and the whole situation makes you pause, and makes it really difficult for you to come to work. But if there is a customer that's harassing you, I mean, one way that we can help deal with that is if you do indeed have a trusted manager or, a union steward, go to them and they can make it so that, they can either the management can go talk to them and, just kind of try to work things out. Or they could make it so that you no longer have to deliver to this person. Because everybody deserves dignity and respect at work. And that's the culture that we're trying to create here. So, next up, being on the overtime list. I know that a lot of us are on the overtime list, but it intrinsically sort of almost implies a level of financial stress or insecurity. And many of the strong, beautiful women that I work with are single mothers trying to balance being there for your kids with trying to keep a roof over your head and food on the table. But even if you're not a single parent, our wages have not kept up with where they would be if we had raises that were 1-to-1 with inflation. And they have chipped away at our wages and our benefits over the years, to the point that many of us are stressed out about making rent, paying bills, and making sure our family has nutritious food to eat. So working as hard as we do while also having to stress about finances is the reality of being a carrier in 2025. I've got coworkers who have separate jobs, and I do not live in a high cost of living area. So it's unfair, and it's also the reason why we fight the way that we do, right? And additionally, maybe systemic issues like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, classism, any number of isms and phobias could be getting you down. We do indeed live in some crazy times right now. And there are people who are running our government who, if they had it their way, would do away with a variety of, women's rights, same-sex marriage, and even no-fault divorce. It's scary. We see our family members, neighbors, and our friends being scooped up off the street and zip-tied by people in plain clothes into unmarked cars and being deprived of the due process that we're supposed to, is supposed to be our right. And our own healthcare plans that we all work so hard for at the post office are being hijacked to exclude trans folks from the care that they've well earned. And the price of housing and groceries seems to be going up to no end while the rich get richer. And additionally, maybe you're burnt out by the news. So we have a job and a 24/7 news media ecosystem that makes it really easy to just listen to endless podcasts and newscasts all day about everything that's wrong in the world, almost to a level that it can be addicting. It's good to be informed. I will never tell you not to be informed, but also not at the cost of your sanity. Okay. And it's good to pick one or two reliable news podcasts that you like and listen to them from time to time, but use the rest of the time that you have the work to listen to podcasts like, shameless plug here, Next Generation Carriers, or other podcasts or audiobooks that have to do with your interests, maybe even outside of work, like something that lifts you up, or even music, right? Like something that puts you in a positive and empowered mood instead of like a slow IV drip of doom. So, is there something that you've wanted to learn about that you've been putting on the back burner? Do you like comedy? True crime? Trust me, there is a podcast out there for everything. And like even books too. I know that my personal library offers an app called Libby where I can download audiobooks onto my phone and listen to them as the day. I finish books so fast that way. It is crazy. So let's get into the official section where we talk about how to help and make things better. So very first thing I'm going to start with is let's simply begin by making sure that our most basic needs are being taken care of. So I am talking the very bottom of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy of needs type stuff. Like, when was the last time that you had a cup of water? Y'all, it is amazing the lengths that I will go to avoid drinking water and to drink something else instead. But we gotta quit it. We gotta quit it, guys. We gotta drink the water, the splashy stuff. Add Liquid IV, add Mio, whatever you gotta do. Just make sure you're getting your water, okay? When was the last time that you had like a nutritious meal or a snack? And I'm not talking about like a little Debbie snack cake, like something really like that's going to fuel your body and make you feel good. When was the last time that you've gotten a full night's sleep? Yeah, you're gonna need a full night's sleep. I cannot function if I don't have my 8. I don't know how y'all do it. How is your health? Are you in pain? Are you sick? Like, do you have 4 walls around you that you can call a home? And if the answer to any of these questions is no, let's start by taking care of those things first, okay? Because no wonder you're feeling burnt out because your basic needs aren't being taken care of. So, if all of your most basic needs are indeed being taken care of, I'm going to tell you about something that works faster than Xanax to help with anxiety, and it's called deep breathing. Okay? There are a variety of ways that you can do this, but the point is to connect with yourself in the moment, in the present. How are you feeling right now? What's on your mind? Let's take a moment to just kind of reflect on that. So you can breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, out for 4 counts, and then hold again for 4 counts. So this is called box breathing because it like makes a little box because it's 4 even sides. But you can do also whatever works for you. So, but don't skip past this because it's really important to get grounded. I know that I love to be like, oh, let's do a deep breathing exercise, and then do like 1 or 2 deep breaths and just continue on. Don't do that. Actually, take some deep breaths and get grounded. Because the next thing that I'm going to recommend is to pinpoint the source of the stress. So once you have cleared your head a little bit with the deep breathing, I need you to go get a journal, like a regular line journal, notes app on your phone. You got a computer, type it up on your laptop, whatever you got to do, and completely empty your brain onto the pages. Like, empty your whole brain. Every big and little thing that's bothering you, that's on your mind, everything. It does not need to be nice. It does not need to be grammatically correct. You do not need to spell perfectly. It can be messy. Look at your calendar and look at your to-do list and decide, what are you dreading? What are you neutral about? What can be put off? What needs to be prioritized? Is there something that seems really small but has been bugging you for days or weeks now? Like, do you have like... Is there a little annoying issue, like do you have a leaky faucet that you need to get fixed? Or do you need to make sure to set a reminder for something? Write it all down. And once you have everything written on the page, you can do pretty much whatever you want with it. You could burn it, crumple it up, throw it away, whatever you want. But what I would do it's going to be therapeutic no matter what. Once you have your entire brain emptied onto the page, it is going to be therapeutic. You will feel better after doing this, or at least a little bit lighter, because you're not carrying around such a burden anymore. But what I would recommend to do is to examine what you wrote. So, what surprised you? Is there anything that can be taken care of easily in like under 5 minutes? Is there anything that you can ask for help on? Are there any commitments that you need to say no to? What's good about what's written there? What's bad? This is the phase where I would probably make a little bit more clean and tidy sort of list of the big things and the small things and the high priorities and the low priorities and the things that I have to say yes to and the things that I could say no to. So one thing that I want us all to keep in mind is that, for most of us, the candle has been burning from both ends for years now. And it's going to take a lot more than just taking like one day to focus on your burnout to really help things along. Like, I told my good friend who I work with how I've been feeling a little bit burnt out lately. I have this and this and this going on, and I asked what they would do, and they gave me some really awesome advice. And they said, go into low battery mode. Your phone's got that low battery mode. Treat yourself like you're sick. Nurture yourself. Be cozy. Ask your loved ones for space. Like, just, separate, create a barrier between yourself and the world. So, and I am not a therapist myself, obviously, but I have done my fair share of time in therapy. I will plug EAP, the Employee Assistance Program, is a great resource for those of us who work at the post office. But I also think that many of us could use more than just a couple therapy sessions to work through our shit. Because, let's be real, nobody makes it out of childhood or the post office, for that matter, unscathed. And I think that everyone needs a little bit of therapy. So if your healthcare plan allows for it, I recommend therapy for pretty much everyone, but especially if you're going through a season of burnout. And if your healthcare plan doesn't cover it and you're listening shortly after this episode comes out, open season is right around the corner, and it may be worth looking into a plan that has more to offer in the mental health psychotherapy category. So, once you've come to an understanding about what things are your biggest stressors, now is the time to lean into the people in your life to help you. So we all know here that in the union, our power comes from our numbers. Our strength comes from our numbers. And likewise, at home, in any other dimension of life, many hands make for light work. So maybe this means that your roommate starts to make dinner and does the dishes, 2 or 3 times a week. Maybe people have expectations of you that no longer feel realistic. Don't feel bad for asking for help. It is commonly said that you cannot pour from an empty cup. Nobody can do everything, and compromise and communication are key. On the flip side, let's take time to consider what actually recharges you. What are the healthy things you can do that make you feel more whole? I love to go for a relaxing walk just as much as the next guy, probably a little bit more than the next guy. But the truth is, doing a yoga video likely isn't going to cut it if you've been dealing with burnout for years and years and years. If those things help you, and I'm thrilled to hear that, please carry on, continue to do them. But being burnt out is like being in a car without any gas. And you need to be refilled with the mental, emotional fuel to continue onward in your journey. So maybe this is a good opportunity to reconnect with the things that you love, with the things that refuel you, whether that's having a social night with your friends, picking up a musical instrument, whatever you like to do, whatever brings you joy and gives you life. So what did you do before you started working at the post office? What did you do before you became a parent? So I'll use myself as an example. I have been big into crochet lately. For those of you that don't know, it's basically knitting, but you use a hook instead of knitting needles. And right now I'm making a blanket with this big chunky yarn, and it's very repetitive, it is very meditative, and it is stress relieving. And most of the time when I'm not working on my crochet, I'm thinking about the next time that I get to work on my crochet. So if you can come up with something, clear your schedule, and do it at least once a week. Okay, give yourself something to look forward to. Schedule a day off or two for a long weekend. And like I said, it will probably take a long time to recover from burnout, and you cannot fix it all in one weekend. But these are the beginning baby steps to making things more manageable for you to get your life and your energy back on track. And having one self-care day isn't enough to establish it as a routine. And additionally, if you schedule something, like let's say that you schedule a dance class or whatever, and it begins, you go every Wednesday or whatever, and it begins to feel like a burden, that is also a sign. That means that you're getting burnt out of the dance class, okay? So pay attention to what things. And I'm not saying that you have to quit dance class forever. I'm just saying that maybe it's good to just pause, and then come back to it once you're ready, because you're going to feel a lot better. You're going to feel recharged. And, if the things that you do to take away from your burnout are robbing you of your life, then that's the opposite of what we're doing it for, right? Next up, you may need to set some hard boundaries. This can be really hard. Like, nobody likes to feel like you're disappointing anyone, but it is really important that you begin to build trust with yourself so that you know that you will follow through for yourself, and that you know you can trust yourself to do what's best for you and not what's best for other people. So, for example, this may mean that you are going to bed at 10 p.m. no matter what. So if you invite me over, I'm leaving at whatever time is going to get me in bed by 10 p.m. It may mean that you're not answering your phone off the clock, which you shouldn't be doing anyways. Don't do it. It could mean that Tuesday night is trivia night with the girls, and you won't be available from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Those are just a couple examples I thought of, though, and I need you to apply them, make them work for your own life. And people may come to you and say, hey, well, I really, really need you to do X, Y, and Z, and I need you to remember that no is a complete sentence. Okay? A lot of us have a hard time to say no, but even especially if things have been okay for a while, and we feel like we're in better shape than we are, but we need to keep that promise to yourself so that you can avoid all the misery that comes with being burnt out once again. So the habits and routines, making it regular, is going to be the thing that keeps you from falling into the burnout rabbit hole once again. So also, it would be remiss of me to finish this episode without giving instructions about how to get restrictions. So work restrictions are the answer if your station is poorly staffed and you're not able to work long days anymore. You don't need the money, Well, first off, the contract made it so that you cannot be disciplined for going home at 11 and a half or 12 hours, depending on if you take a lunch, right? But if you need more time for yourself, go to your primary care physician or any doctor who sees you, could be a psychiatrist or psychologist or, whatever, and ask them to write you a note saying that due to stress, yes, stress is a legitimate medical reason, that you can't work over 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 5 days per week, etc. You kind of get to decide the terms here. Get your doctor to sign it and give it to management, and then make sure it gets to your post office nurse. So this is a contractually legitimate way for any and every carrier to make it so that you can't be worked into the ground anymore. Okay? And lastly, when things start to get better, remember the first warning signs that you experienced when you began to wonder if you were experiencing burnout. So for me, it happened very slowly. Like, weeks and months went by, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate, when I just felt like I couldn't catch my breath. It was just one thing after another after another. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking to myself, like, am I burnt out? And now that I'm looking back and I'm realizing that I was actually burnt out for at least 2 or 3 months before I started to give it that name. So watch those symptoms, watch out in the early stages, and do what you can to prevent it. So, and lastly, this is the most important part of the whole episode. If you remember that you are not alone in this, okay? Burnout will continue to be a systemic issue here at the post office until we can achieve a level of work-life balance that most of us don't currently experience. So those of us on the overtime list want overtime because we don't get paid enough to afford life without it. Carriers who don't want overtime are mandated either because they're a CCA or because their station is poorly staffed. And here's your reminder that a $30 an hour starting wage, an end to mandatory overtime, and an all-career workforce are all things that we can fight for. These are things that we are fighting for. And just remember that our power is in our numbers and no one person can do everything. So this is your warning, okay, from activist to activist. I know that we are all guilty of this from time to time, but please do not take on more than you're equipped to do, okay? If you've got the mental space, speaking of which, if you've got the mental space and you are pumped up to make that change within our workplace, we are planning contract campaign rallies. And as of today, it looks like they will take place in DC on the 16th of February and on the 22nd, pretty much everywhere else. So, though some of us are planning rallies in our prospective cities, have been participating in a WhatsApp group and joining Zoom meetings every couple weeks or so. So, additionally, if you're listening to this episode shortly after it comes out, Next Generation Carriers will be having NALC President Brian Renfro on to talk about the rallies, which is sure to be an interesting conversation. So, the links to get signed up are all in the description of this podcast, and I would love to see you all there. Again, this is your primer. This has been your primer on burnout at the post office. There are plenty of resources available, and nothing that I mentioned is completely exhaustive of the issue of burnout. It affects each of us differently. So continue to do some research. Take care of yourself. Thank you for listening. Solidarity and courage.
Letter carriers say they've been working for more than 500 days without a contract, and today they made their voices heard on the streets of
USPS failed to protect Eugene Gates and others.
Can't take it no more.
Mail carrier robbed at gunpoint.
Police are targeting these mail carriers for their universal keys.
Nearly 1,200 reported attacks and other assaults on postal workers just last year alone.